Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharpe. Our headlines this week: as of this taping, Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva is still Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva, despite the fact that it's been more than a week since her convincing victory in Arizona's special election in Congressional District 11. Her swearing-in has been delayed because, according to House Speaker Mike Johnson, it's standard practice to swear in new members when the House is in session. It's currently not, but two Republican Congress members elected in special elections earlier this year were sworn in within 24 hours when the House was not in session. Grijalva says she feels like a tourist in D.C., which I got to be honest with you, being a tourist in D.C. is probably a lot better than actually living there. Headline number 2 drives home that point. Congressman David Schweikert says one of the reasons he's running for Arizona governor is to run away from Washington. He told the Arizona Capital Times that dealing with D.C. has him at a point where, quote, I am livid all the time and I come home angry. He told LaDonna Harvey and me on Arizona's Morning News that he's also looking forward to spending more time with his kids. He's my guest next week on the AZ Political Podcast. And during the last federal government shutdown that stretched from December of 2018 into January of 2019, former Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, a Republican, used state funds to keep Grand Canyon National Park open. The same thing former Republican Governor Jan Brewer did in 2013. However, during this shutdown, current Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs is not doing that because she says she's not sure the state will get reimbursed, despite the fact that more than $900 million in tourism is generated annually at that big hole in the ground. All right, let's talk to our guest this week on the AZ Political Podcast. That is Charlene Fernandez. Thanks for being with us here.
Thank you for inviting.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure.
After working as a congressional aide, serving in elected office as a school board member and a state legislature, after working in the Biden administration, you decided to really find out what politics is all about and become the chair of the Arizona Democratic Party? Because, anything less than party politics is for wimps, right?
It's all for wimps.
Yeah. So let's talk about, the recent history of the Democratic State Party. Where did things go wrong with your predecessor? And how do you intend to right this ship so that Democratic elected officials are looking to the party for support rather than elsewhere?
Well, Jim, let me tell you, I had to run for this position. Yeah. And the whole time I was running, I just had eyes straight ahead. I didn't want to worry about what happened, where the alliances were. And I actually did not even ask anyone, what happened to the last party chair? I just wanted to run my campaign, be true to myself, make sure the people that were going to be voting know my record. And that's how I won. And I've hit the ground running. I just have not had any time to find out what went wrong. But we are in a rebuilding stage, rebuilding trust with our legislators, with our electeds, with our staff, and with our donors. So that's what the work I've been doing right now.
And are you finding hesitation, or are people like, oh, it's Charlene, this is going to be okay?
It's been wonderful. I hope it's not the so-called honeymoon stage. I've been well received. The phone calls are great. People have great advice for me, talking about what I should be doing. So I'm really putting a lot of value on those conversations. Staff seems to be happy. We have a happy office there. And we've got some great ideas on the table to carry us to big wins in November of 2026.
So let's talk about that, because between now and then, you got a lot of work to do, right? I mean, yes. The Democrats are in third place after Republicans and independents in voter registration in Arizona. That is not an enviable position to be going into this 2026, not only a statewide, but also a midterm election. What are you doing to increase party registrations and increase donations to both the party and to Democratic candidates?
Putting a real focus on voter registration all over the state. We value what happens in, here in the Valley and urban areas like Phoenix and Tucson, but we have to hit those small communities throughout Arizona. So we will be doing a very robust, very aggressive voter registration drive. And this would be at the same time as we're rebuilding our party with our precinct committee people. We're going to put them to work. Those are our, people on the ground. They'll be doing the initial part of voter registration.
I think people in other states have no idea how vast Arizona is. I believe it's the 5th largest state land-wise. I spent some time growing up on the Navajo Nation, which is just is about as rural as you can imagine anywhere. Sending people out to very often speak to people who might not even speak English. I mean, my brother's first wife, his mother-in-law didn't speak English at all. She spoke Navajo only. Oh, okay. And so you've got a language barrier in some cases. You've got long drives to try and knock on doors. What does coordinating something like that look like?
Well, we're going to make sure that the people that are out there are from there. We're going to work with our individual precinct committee people in the area that speak the language, that understand the people. I think it's really hard when you send someone from Phoenix out to the Navajo Nation, although they love to see us and we love to go out there. So we have to make sure that we deploy those people that live in the area, that understand the culture and the area that they live in. You touched on the fact that I, was served in the Biden administration. I was the director of rural development. So I have traveled those areas. I went out to the Navajo Nation where the Biden administration, one of their top priorities was making sure that we had broadband everywhere in this state, and actually talked to some elders that had their cell phones and thanked me for getting internet in that area so they could finally have telehealth. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
We don't think about that. We think about the internet for, streaming and, education. But these elders were so happy because they could now communicate with a health professional. So, we need to understand what the needs are out there. We don't go out there and tell them what they need. We listen. We listen to their stories and try to connect the dots for them.
Yeah. Chiche is not interested in going on TikTok. That's grandfather. He's not interested in going on TikTok. He's interested in talking to his doctor, right? So
exactly. Yeah, and we have to understand that.
Yeah. This is, and what's also really interesting is that how technology has changed. I mean, I would never presume to ever mention anything about a lady's age, but I don't think you're a whole lot younger than me. And there was a time when I remember, kids I went to school with, they'd go home in the afternoon and they would hook up their TV to their pickup battery so they could watch TV that was coming off of Black Mesa, as a repeater of an Albuquerque station. It is completely changed how you've got a campaign in there.
Yeah, and that sounds very, very familiar, obviously. But, you just have to roll with the punches. What's the new thing now? And make sure you keep up to date and make sure that you surround yourself with those younger minds that understand this and help you along the way.
So, 2022 was a great year for Democrats in Arizona. And, actually the years preceding that too, with Kyrsten Sinema winning, and there was a lot of Democrats that took a lot of very important offices. But I think, especially when Senator Kelly got into office, he really understood that you can't just be straight ahead one way or the other on all issues.
Absolutely.
And so how do you feel about where the Democratic Party for the state needs to align? Is it progressive enough? Is it not progressive enough? Is it Goldilocks? Is it just right in that sweet spot there?
You know better than I do that Arizonans are so independent. And then now we talk about Democrats, got even more independent. We're all different. We're all diverse. We live in different areas. We hear from people that care about the economy. That's the most important thing, or healthcare, or education, or all three. And you have to talk to those issues. And Senator Kelly and Senator Gallego are perfect at that. They understand. They go out into communities like Yuma County, the Navajo Nation, and understand what's going on out there and are able to decipher how they can help. We've got some wonderful statewide. I mean, come on, Governor Hobbs has been doing a great job of making sure that she is dealing with issues that are affecting our middle class, our working class, and especially I think about issues like water. She's been working really hard on those issues with water. It's a big thing in my area. And I still call it my area. It's my home, Yuma County.
Yeah.
And then you've got, A.G. Mays. I mean, she's amazing what she's done. She's put on a great job of making sure that we are taken care of against this administration. And then you obviously know Secretary of State Fuentes. He's going to be protecting our vote and protecting our privacy.
I have heard over the last few years, and I'm not going to name names, but some people who are in some decently sized positions of power, offices, complain either that, members of the Democratic Party, and I'm talking about Democrats saying this to me,
yes,
are like, they're not progressive enough, or they're just way too worried about this one issue. And can we just figure out how to have a united front? But I've always also felt that Arizona Democrats seem to have a lot more discipline when it comes to, not stepping on each other's toes to run for office, and the Republicans seem to sometimes line up in a circular firing squad when it comes to, politics. And I maybe case in point is a third Republican being added to the governor's race,
yes,
right,
yes.
with David Schweikert. Do you hear these gripes? I'm sure you do all the time. It's like, oh, why doesn't so and so do this, and why doesn't so-and-so do that?
I heard it firsthand. I was a minority leader at the Arizona legislature,
right.
And a lot of people didn't understand. We had 29 members, one of the biggest Democratic caucuses in years. We were 15-14 many times, 15 going one way, 14 going the other. But on those important issues, when it came for Red for Ed, when we talked about the environment, when we talked about health care, all 29 of us came together. So it was just one of those things. People have the interests that they have. They're representing a different area than I represented. So, you had to listen to them. You had to pave the way for us to come together, vote on that. We've all voted against the budget when we needed to. We stuck together, every single one of us. Even though there was times that we weren't sure that was going to happen, we all came together on that night and voted against the budget. And then we all went about our, different ways. So, we have to tell that story, why we do that, how we do that. It's a strategy, to come together when we have to and make a bigger bang. And then we move on and represent the areas that we come from.
Were you whip first?
I was whip for 2 years, and then I became the leader.
That's what I thought. I thought I'd read. So how is it different being a party chairperson? Or is it really similar to being a whip? Because your job is to whip up the votes, right?
I think a lot of people saw it that way. And, when I'm making my phone calls and people are telling me that they're happy I'm there, they're like, you're the best person for, this job because you were a whip. I mean, they mention that and they think of a whip. But, you're talking to people. You have to know where they're at. You have to know why they're voting a certain way. And you have to know that person. I mean, outside of the building, outside of those four walls, you have to know your members.
It's also got to be a little bit like herding cats and juggling flaming chainsaws too, right?
It is. And going to them and telling them how important it is that we go out to, I took them on the road. I don't know. I think they did it in the past, but it was real important to me. So we visited places as a group at the Navajo Nation, Mojave County, places that they had never been and didn't represent. But I wanted them to see and touch and feel what is happening in those areas. Today, many of them tell me, hey, so-and-so remembered me from when we went out there. And you have to do that. We have to get out and visit those rural areas.
Where do you think Arizona Democrats can gain ground on Arizona Republicans? Is there one particular issue? And this is one of the things that struck me. So I went out and covered the Democratic National Convention in the fall in Chicago last year. And one of the things that kind of struck me was they're all English words and they're all American words, but it sounded like there was a lot of use of Republican-ish kind of themes, hearing a DNC chant, USA, USA. I could be honest, I didn't know if I'd ever see that in my lifetime, but is there any of those kind of things that the Arizona Republicans do that you're like, you know what, that is actually our purview too. That's our thing too. Well,
I'm going to talk about representation. I don't think anybody represents their constituents like Democrats do. I mean, I'm just going to say that. And if someone can prove me wrong, let them prove me wrong. We know how to represent. We know how to do constituency services. We know when people come in and say, hey, I'm having this kind of problem, we know where to send them and to make sure that they're taken care of. You asked about us gaining some ground. I think that, in our rural areas, if we can move the needle in every one of our 13 rural counties, we could make a dent. We could definitely make a dent. And if we keep going back out there and building that trust over and over and over again, we'll see us, rise. We'll be like Phoenix. We'll rise from the ashes, although we're not in the ashes.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Fair enough. That was good. That was a good answer. Good save there at the very end. Right. But, you're having to do it in places like Coconino County, second largest county in the entire United States. I mean, that is a vast area. Who is your, who do you consider your number one mentor in politics? Or is there just one that you would like to mention? And did we mention his name earlier before we were on the air?
Congressman Pastor, I was so fortunate to work for him for 11 years, and I was able to see him, how he interacted with people. He was able to work with anyone, anytime, anyhow, and I want it to be like that. I want it to be sure to be like that, especially in an area that I come from. It's a very kind of conservative area. He could just walk anywhere. Let me tell you, when I ran for minority leader, he was making phone calls on my behalf. I don't know how many people know that. So he stayed in touch with us, and he helped us along the way. He treated us like family. So he was a mentor. There were so many people that helped me along the way. I was telling, a lady was telling me the other day because I get to talk to so many people. And she said, I've been pretty lucky in my lifetime. And I said, yeah, you know what someone told me though? And I think it was Congressman Pastor, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And that is true. I saw him work hard. I worked hard, and look how lucky I am. I'm sitting here today.
Is there anyone among Arizona Democrats that reminds you a lot of Ed Pastor at this point? I know you're not supposed to have favoritism as favorites. You're like mom, right? You're not supposed to have a favorite, right?
We've got some great ones out there doing great work. Like I said, I've been in touch with Senator Kelly and Senator Gallego, and I see the work that they're doing. Town halls in rural areas, come on. Who else is doing that? And yet, they're filling gyms, they're filling up, schools with people wanting to hear from them. They actually do the work. They have staff out there doing constituency services. Like I said, I learned that from the best, and that's what they're doing, and that's what we need to do. We've got a great congressman with Congressman Stanton, Congresswoman Yasari. Every single one of them are doing the work. We know how to do representation. I got to tell you that.
Okay. Fair enough.
You tell me what kind of calls you get after this.
No, I can take all those calls. That's great. We'll have to have you back, and I can have you answer. Well, so-and-so said this person does it better. So what do you see as your biggest challenge going forward? And do you intend to stay in this position for a while?
I ran on that I was fulfilling the rest of this term. I haven't really thought past that. I think my biggest challenge is time. It's just time. Every day I've been at the office. I won on a Saturday, Sunday morning. I was at the office, and I've been there ever since. So time is I need more time. But we have a lot of people that are joining in and helping and making sure we can get this voter registration plan off the ground. And that's very important to me.
Well, you're probably thinking, if you'd stop asking me inane questions, I can get on with doing my job. I don't have a whole lot of time.
I think this is part of my job, right? Because I'm hoping your listeners are listening to the fact that we are going to go out there and register people to vote. We know that a lot of independents already are on our side. So I think those numbers are really deceiving. So many of them. We know that there's like 44 million people that are worried about their health care this morning. They are worried about their health care. Subsidies are going to be over with the Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm. So we know that there are 44 million people, taking advantage of the, and I shouldn't say it in those words, taking advantage, have the opportunity to have the Affordable Care Act and have health care for them and their families. I hear stories, and people tell me, I heard of this woman that her son was hurt in a motorcycle accident. Your first response is he okay? Oh, he's okay. But she was telling me that he was able to, because she kept him on her insurance through the Affordable Care Act, kept him on her insurance, everything's taken care of. He's going to be, he's going to heal fine. Those stories we have to tell over and over and over again. Think about those kids that, when they had to be in college to stay on the insurance, turn 22, and they're out of college. their health care is over. But now they get to stay on it for a while they're establishing themselves in their own job and their own insurance. Those things we have to talk about and tell over and over and over again.
So I'll make my last question kind of a weird, but a tough one, I think. With all the violence that we have seen lately, politically motivated violence, I was talking with ABC crime and terrorism analyst Brad Garrett. He's a former FBI agent. He's not a partisan guy at all. We were talking about the fact that a study shows that now left-wing political violence has actually overtaken right-wing political violence, which is, it's just disturbing no matter which side it's coming from, right? Mm-hmm. Do you consider part of your job talking to potential candidates and elected officials about tamping down rhetoric that leads to people? I mean, sometimes you can just say the most innocuous thing, and somebody who's not mentally stable, of course, can take that and run with that. Yeah. But obviously we have had a lot of heated political rhetoric in this country.
Absolutely. And what I would tell people, tell our candidates, our elected officials, talk about the issues and how we're addressing the issues. There is nothing harmful in what we're doing or in the language that we have to use when we talk about how important it is to, we talk about the health care, we talk about our environment, we talk about the work that we've done and we were doing in the last administration to address those issues. So I think in that way, we're talking about tempering it down a bit.
That's good. Can we just all get along, right?
It would be wonderful if we could all just get along. Is that always going to happen? I understand. We're all different. There's lots of things going on, but we just have to stick to the issues and what we're doing.
All right. Well, good luck in your new job.
Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure to meet you.
It was a pleasure to meet you. It was really great.
I hope you have me back.
You can guarantee it. All right.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and thank you for watching the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharpe, and we will see you soon.
Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast with Jim Sharpe. Click the box to watch more from KTAR News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.